I started all of my perennial flowers and annual flowers in my landscape from seed. And I started all of the flowers in my pollinator garden from seed. And as they fade at the end of the season, it's time to start collecting these seeds so that I can spread these flowers into other areas of my garden. Join me today as I show you how I collect my flower seeds. Hi, I'm Gardener Scott, and unless you're growing a lot of hybrid flowers, you can expect that you can save the seeds of the flowers that you're growing and continue to grow those same plants from those seeds. Now, in this pollinator garden, I'm going to let a lot of these flowers just go to seed and drop the seeds naturally and have this area filled with these plants that I chose to put in this year. But because I chose these plants for this area, I want to go ahead and save some of these seeds, start them indoors, or sow them in a new area so that next year I have the same color and the same plants in other areas of my garden. The tools of choice are pretty basic. It's a simple set of hand pruners, a marker, and some paper lunch bags. And this is all I need to collect seeds from plants like this cosmos and this poppy. In most cases, the flowers will tell you when it's time to harvest the seeds. With these poppies, I still have a few blossoms remaining. But on the other part of the plant, where the blossoms have long faded, the flowers have turned into little seed pods. And it's these pods that I'm going to harvest to get more poppy seed. These cosmos blossoms will gradually fade. They'll start to dry out with a little bit of color remaining. And then they'll dry completely. And the seeds will actually form where the flowers used to be. This is what I'll be harvesting to collect the cosmos seeds. And that's what you can expect when you save flower seeds. The flower will either form pods, and all of the seeds will be on the inside of those pods, or the flower will transform, and then all of the seeds will be on the outside of the flower head. I like to harvest the entire flower head, which is why I bring the bags, and I use my pruners just to cut off the flower heads and allow them to drop into the bag. You could come out with an envelope or a small jar and just take the pods or the flower heads and crush them and sprinkle the seeds into that container. And there's often so many seeds that you only need to do this once or twice. But because I like to do a lot of seeds and I end up giving a lot of seeds away, I find the bag method works best for me. And so I'll just write the seed that I'm saving and the year, and I'm ready to start collecting the seeds. In all cases, it's best to allow the flower head to dry on the plant. You want those seeds to be fully mature. So I'll just take these poppy flower heads, put them over the bag, and then just cut them off and allow them to drop in. Now sometimes the stem may be dry enough that you can just do this with your fingers. But as a bunch, I'll typically do with the pruners. How many of these dried flower heads you choose to save depends on how many seeds you want. With a seed like these poppies, there could be hundreds of seeds in a single pod. But with these cosmos, where the seeds are on the outside, once they dry, you may see that there's only 10 or 14 seeds that are on the outside of the flower head. And so while I might only save half a dozen of the poppy pods because there's just so many seeds, I might be saving a dozen or two of these cosmos so that I can get as many seeds as I can. And with a plant like this Amaranth, you can get thousands of seeds with very little effort. By allowing one of the flower stalks to dry completely, just by saving this one stalk, I'll have more amaranth seeds than I know what to do with. You can see how easy this basic process is. And so I'll just pick a day when I have a lot of different seeds that are ready to go, and then just wander throughout the garden collecting the seeds. And especially one like this coneflower, they don't break off the plant well at all. So I really do need these pruners to cut these dried seed heads. But I'll do this with a number of different flowers, and then I'll go inside and I'll show you the process of taking these seed heads and then preparing them to save until they're ready to sow. Another reason why I like to use paper bags to collect my flower seeds is because the bags breathe. They allow air in and air out, and while I like to get the seeds once they've dried on the plant, there's often little bits of leaves or stem that might still be a little green. So in the bag, they can continue to dry. And when I bring these bags into the house, I let them sit for a week or two before I take the next step of collecting, preparing, and then saving the seeds. I begin this phase by just getting a paper plate. That's my preferred method, but you could easily use a ceramic plate, some parchment paper, or a paper towel. And this is what I'm going to use to actually collect the seeds from the flower heads. And once the seeds are separated and ready to store, I like to use glass jars. Now, over the years, I've collected just any empty jar that I come across from the kitchen to store my seeds in. But I always end up having a bigger jar than I need for the seeds. So recently, I came across all these nice little jars. So I can store the seeds in these and actually put them on the shelf, and they don't take up much space. I'll put a link in the description below to these jars in particular. If I'm going to give away some of the seeds, I like to use envelopes, and I got these envelopes that are really designed for seeds. I think they're perfect for that. And I'll put some seeds in these envelopes if I'm intending to share them. But for my own use, I like the glass jars. The key to a good storage container is that it will keep the seeds dry. We've made a point to harvest the seeds while they're dry and then give them a little bit extra time to dry out. We need to make sure they stay dry during the entire storage process. And that's why I like the glass jars, because it keeps water out. You can store in a paper bag or a paper envelope. You could easily use plastic bags to store your seeds, or like these paper seed packets. Whatever you choose to use, we're going to be storing our seeds in a cool, dark, dry location. And as long as you put the seeds in a container so that they stay nice and cool and dry, you'll be perfectly fine. For right now, let's go ahead and start separating these seeds. Let's start with these poppies. And so I'll just pour the bag into this plate. And you'll see that some of the seeds have already separated from the pods, and these are all the little seeds that we'll be using. For a flower pod like this, what we need to do is break open the pods. Now, these poppy seeds have a pod that really is easy to break, and so that's all I'm going to do right now is just break apart all of these pods to get all of these seeds. Now I just shake everything to one side of the plate, And what I want to do is try to separate all these bigger pieces. So I'll pull them to the other side of the plate so that I'm leaving the seeds mostly on one side. And especially with little seeds like this and big pieces of the pod, it's pretty simple to separate everything out. And I'm going to want to discard all these bigger pieces. When I've got most of the big pieces separated, now I can start thinking about these individual seeds. And so now, with the seeds on a separate sheet of paper, I'll take a clean plate and really make it easy on myself. I like to use strainers and colanders. So depending on the size of seed, I'll pour all of this into a strainer. For the seeds that are very small, they'll fall through and leave behind those bits of chaff. For the seeds that are big, I'll use a similar strainer where the chaff will fall through and the seeds will be left behind. So now all I'm going to do is just take this and pour it into this strainer. And so now all I have to do is just shake this strainer, and the holes in this mesh let all these tiny seeds drop and leave behind all the stuff I didn't want. And now I'm left with a whole bunch of nice little poppy seeds that are ready to put into the jar. Now I'll put the seeds back onto the paper, and there's a little bits of dust that stay behind on the plate, and that's okay. We don't need to store the bits of dust. And then I'll take a jar. I've already put a label to identify what the seeds are and the year. And then using this paper, we'll just fold it and pour all these seeds into the jar. And again, there's some dust left behind. That's fine. Seal up the jar. And I now have a few thousand poppy seeds ready to go into storage. Now, it's really easy with pods. Another pod that I really love working with, and it's even easier than that, are the pods for butterfly weed, which is a milkweed plant that I grow with the intent and hope of attracting monarch butterflies. These seeds are noticeably bigger. Quite a change from the poppy seed, but the idea is the same. We break apart the pod to release the seed. One of the reasons I love these seeds is that they have this feathery, cottony material. We just want to separate out the seeds from the chaff. And in this case, the chaff is all this feather. It separates so quickly and easily. You can see all these big seeds that are left behind. And so I won't need to put these through a strainer. I'll just separate out all this extra material. So what I'm left with is just these nice big butterfly weed seeds. And so I've discarded all of that extra material. All that's left behind are the seeds. And we'll just pour the seeds into our jar that I put a label on. And now I've got another jar of seeds ready to go. Now let's go ahead and move on to seeds that don't set in pods. And so these will be the coneflower seeds. This time I'll do it a little differently, just so you can see that it's not critical how you use the different steps. Now I'm going to try to peel off the dried flower petals beforehand. This will cut down on some of the chaff that I have. And then you can see, just using my finger to pull off the seeds that are attached to the flower head. There are a lot of seeds here, so I'm just going to go ahead and stop with those few and put the chaff off to the side. And you see that I didn't do this on the plate, I did it on the paper. Bigger seeds don't need to do much in the way of separating out the chaff, and so now I can just pour it directly into the jar with the label. Now these seeds have a little bit of green material attached to them. The seeds themselves look to be dry, but some of those little bits of the petals that are attached to it look a little green. So at this point, I'll add a Desiccant package. Now, these are what you typically get in electronics boxes. And so I'll take one of these and put it in the jar just to help keep mold from developing. And I'll just loosely put the lid on so that some air can still flow back and forth. And that'll help the seeds continue to dry and avoid being in a moist environment while I'm saving them. These previous seeds that are all nice and dry, I'm not concerned about, but I will check on this periodically over the next couple weeks just to make sure that they're continuing to dry and everything's going to be okay with that. Now let's go ahead and look at another similar seed like this Calendula. These are also very big seeds. And so, anticipating the separation requirements of the chaff, I can just go ahead and hold the flower head similar to the coneflower and just pop off the seeds. And then I'll discard what's in my hand. These are among the easiest to do. So again, just touching the seeds and allowing the seeds to fall on the paper. Now, by taking an easy approach to the seed separation like this, when it comes time to put this chaff into my little bowl, and I'm going to be putting all of this chaff, all this waste into the compost pile, I might lose some seeds. There might still be a few seeds in the chaff or connected to some of these dried flower heads. I'm okay with that because just those few flowers have given me dozens of calendula seeds. So if I lose a few in the chaff, I'm not that worried about it. And then from here, we do it exactly the same. Put the seeds into our jar, and this is done. So you can see in a very short period of time, we've separated out and now have ready for storing 4 different types of flower seeds. And that's why I say I like to collect the seeds all on one day and then give them a week or 2 for additional drying and then put all the seeds into jars in one day. And it's really a good use of my time because I can make it happen pretty fast. And that's all there is to it. Pods or seeds on the outside, either way, you should be able to collect your flower seeds and save them. And next year, I'll be able to grow more of these same plants. I'm Gardener Scott. Enjoy gardening.